this is Cole Liker.
Hi, I'm Neil Collins.
You are listening to the Unused Substitute.
The Unused Substitute.
And you're listening to the Unused Substitutes.
Get off the bench!
Hey there, Little Red Riding Hood, I got a problem and it's complicated. Going through changes and I just can't ignore the signs. There and now it's so loud it hurts. Hear me bellowing, hear me howling the full moon.
On the throw, ball's gonna bounce down, it's free in the box. Bicycle kick! Goal! Rowdies! What a play! What a shot! And it's 1-0 Rowdies!
Good evening, everybody. It's 8 o'clock on Wednesday night, and you are listening to the Unused Substitute, your Rowdies Talk Radio, the Green and Gold Gospel, live on Radio St. Pete, part of the Beautiful Game Network, and sponsored by Roughneck Scarves and Golden Gold Press. My name is Matt, and with me tonight is a guy who has never been off his line early. Steven, how you doing?
Well, you know, just enjoying the refreshing blast of Rowdy season past from this last weekend here. So, yeah, you know, it's kind of having these almost just these nice memories coming all flooding back to me of what the last, like 6 years has been like.
So, you remember back in the Open Cup game when you took credit for the Deshaun Brown equalizer?
Yeah, funny that. Yeah.
Probably about 10, 12 minutes before Charleston leveled that game, I tweeted out, starting to get the we're going to score soon or give up a late and crap equalizer. So I think I take the blame for this one.
All right. I endorse this as a co-host of the Unused Substitutes. This tie is all on Matthew Cox.
We continue to be ruining everything. So let's hop right into it. Last weekend, the Rowdies hosting Charleston at home. I believe we said this game was a must-win, right?
It was a must. Well, I mean, we did say must win. We did. And
the Rowdies drew 1-1 early lead and gave it up. Like 4 or 5 minutes away from stoppage time.
It was officially at the 88th minute.
2 minutes. Well, at least we didn't have North Korean referees out there because we would have only gotten probably 30 seconds of stoppage time, as we saw with the Women's World Cup today. I tried to make it this one. I've been fighting off a knee problem for the last, it feels like, month now, and I got in the car and it was just about to the Skyway, and I was like, I can't take it, so I actually had to turn around and come back home. I feel terrible. I think I'm actually better now. I think I'm getting there.
You know, you've said this a couple different times.
I know,
now because
so
you've missed like a lot of live appearances that you and I were supposed to do together and things of that nature. And
I'm a bad person.
And it literally has lasted about a month.
I mean, cause I know it's because it was like right when my last day at school for the year when I was packing up my classroom. That day when I got home, I'm like, oh, my knee's killing me. I need to go rest it and just kind of chill in the bed and watch TV, which is usually what I do at the end of the school year anyway. And it's been rough. But I actually think I'm getting there, which either means I've jinxed it or it's true. Luckily, I will not miss this weekend's game, I promise.
I don't know, man. At this point, this is such a metaphor to everything about what our show is and everything. I mean, you're not only an unused substitute, like, in the field. You're an unused substitute in the show. You're an unused substitute on appearances. I mean, you are, like, unused at all right now for almost the last month.
I can't. I haven't even gotten off the bench. I haven't even gotten onto the bench at this point.
Speaking
of things that just didn't get to where they were supposed to be, on Saturday, You of the two of us, at least you were in attendance. What did you see? What's your good, bad, ugly?
Well, I mean, okay, so obviously we had a great first half. I mean, everything was clicking. We were pushing it. Everything was working exactly to game plan. I mean, we trotted out pretty much the game lineup that we thought. Brandon Allen obviously starting up front was a little strange with Tejada on the bench, considering Tejada doesn't leave for the Olympic qualifiers until like mid-July. So I don't know if Allen starting in place of Tejada up front had more to do with trying to get this team kind of in a mental spot where you don't have to rely on Tejada up front. I don't know if maybe it was just a matchup situation that maybe Neil thought of. But yeah, that was really the only major starting role change that we thought was a little odd. But I mean, in the first half, we did great. I mean, we honestly, we were pressing pretty equal on both sides. The distribution of the ball was fine. Our passing numbers were great. Defensively, we were sound. And then really all of a sudden at halftime, we came out as flat as could be. And, it's funny because like I was watching that, looking to see for an adjustment that maybe Charleston did at halftime, to maybe see if they were compensating for something. Maybe they noticed a deficiency of ours that they were able to capitalize on that made it look more sound. And I honestly can't say I've seen anything. I honestly think this had more to do with just us taking our foot off the gas. I mean, I think we had something like 10 or 12 crosses. I mean, not all of them successful, obviously, but something like good 10 or 12 crosses in the first half, open field plays, and only like 3 in the second. Like you look at Malik Johnson's individual passing numbers, and in the first half he was great. In the second half he was almost invisible. So I just it did really feel like, I mean, there were fewer passes that we even tried going into the box. I mean, we seemed to have backed off completely when you look at like where everybody was touching the ball, things of that nature. We really did legitimately take our foot off the gas and kind of ease into what that second half was as far as pressure. And yeah, that's what happened. And it's funny because, like I said, this was like Ghost of Christmas Past. I mean, this was like a Rowdies past season type thing where we've been watching this for how many years now? I mean, whether it's home or away, this is kind of what we've gotten used to for several years. So I hope this is just a blip. I know we said must win. In some ways, I kind of regret saying that. It was more of a must lose because it was funny because I was saying it was a must win game, and then at the same time I was just saying because we can't lose 2 in a row. So it's like I wasn't even considering a draw.
Yeah, just a must not lose.
Yeah, because I really did kind of phrase. I mean, I said must win, but I also said we can't lose. So I don't know. I mean, I'll take the draw. It's better than losing 2 in a row, but.
Yeah, you mentioned statistically looking at it, and again, this is overall for the game. It doesn't break it down by halves, but 68% possession for the Rowdies. I mean, we kind of thought Charleston would come in and be tired and kind of play that way. And in the first half, they looked like it. And I think maybe going in only down 1-0, they kind of thought, hey, if we can hold it and maybe steal a goal and get out of here with a point possibility. The biggest stat overall jumps out to me, and again, I wish if I had time to dig deeper into it, which I did if I didn't just think of it right now. The interception stats: 10 interceptions for the Rowdies, 24 for Charleston. They were, and I'm going to bet a lot of those come in the second half. They were pretty good at maintaining their shape, holding their lines. At the same time, our passing didn't seem to be as effective as it has been in a lot of the games this year.
Which is funny because our passing numbers overall were some of the best passing numbers we've had all season. Mm-hmm. It's funny to see it's amazing when you start to see contrasting stats like that, where you have, what'd you say, it was 24 interceptions for Charleston for this week. But this was, I think we had something like almost 600 completed passes on the year. And if I'm not mistaken from the stat that I saw the Rowdies put out, was that was the most passes that we had completed all season, which based on the numbers that we ran through last week, that would be correct. So it's amazing that you would have such a crazy discrepancy of stats there.
Yeah, final passes were 586 to 280. You could write off the higher number of interceptions as being a byproduct of attempting a higher number of passes, possibly. But yeah, it's a big discrepancy in there. And then when you look at our passing, like 87% passing accuracy, 81% accurate in the opponent's half, 25-7 on crosses. Only 36% were accurate, but still, passing wise, kind of played them off the field there. But when you get into the attack, where we've got 15 shots, but only 4 are on target. Charleston's only got 9, but 6 of them are on target. We had 4 block shots. They didn't have any equal on shots outside the box. It's you can pick these ones apart, but really in the end, the one that matters is 1-to-1 in goals.
Yeah, and it's funny because like even when you break down the shooting statistics, I mean, what is it? In the second half, I think we only had 4 shots. I think the whole half. So 11 of those 15 were first half.
Right.
So it kind of comes to like reinforce the fact that we were not. We just took our foot off the gas. We weren't pressing for the shot. We weren't taking those opportunities a little bit with more commitment. I'm not really sure the right word to use there, but that was something that we noticed. And that and the fact that our passing numbers were great because Charleston was sitting back so much that we had plenty of time and plenty of ease for switching the field by passing it back along the back line,
mm-hmm.
which it's fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but that's where you start to see the argument about, is possession a worthy statistic as far as grading a team's performance? Because that's one of the things you hear all the time is like, oh, this team outpossessed this team. How did they lose? Well, I mean, when 50% of your passes are all between your defenders, and there's no pressure on them, well, okay, who cares? It doesn't matter what that possession stat is. And I think that had a lot to do with what was going on, and that the amount of intensity we were playing with in the second half is, I think, you saw a lot more, especially from the outside, from our outside mids, from our wingers, that when they had the opportunity to play up the wing and maybe try and cross a play in, or maybe try and dribble the ball into the box from the outside wing position, more frequently in the second half compared to the first, they were actually pulling that ball back and passing it backwards deliberately. And I think that is legitimately what most people are talking about, and rightfully so, that we took the foot off the gas, that we just weren't making the same plays that we did in the first half. We were legitimately changing what we were trying and what we were doing. So, I hope that's more of one of those, like, for this group, considering that there are so many new faces, I hope that's one of those lesson learned moments that, you're doing great. Don't get me wrong. This team is in first place overall. You should be proud of the Laudits and the position that you're in. But at the same time, the difference in quality in this league overall is not really enough that you can just go to the defensive almost, or at least go to the possession almost to the degree that you, with a 1-0 lead, and just expect to just magically pull out a result because you think that you can rest on your laurels. I hope that's more of a growing moment for them as a group, that you can't in this league expect to pull off a 1-0 result when you've got a half a game left to play and just trying to play possession for that, because that's what's killed us for the last 6 years. Outside of maybe one season, maybe 2 seasons, where at least 4 of the last 6, it's been us just kind of backpedaling for the last couple minutes, and then guess what happens? There's goals scored in the 85+ minute mark. And how many drop points have we had over those last 6 seasons where it was just horrible numbers of points that were just left on the table because we stopped. We just stopped playing with the intensity that we should be playing with.
There's very few definitive statements I feel that you can make about playing in lower division American soccer, and probably even upper, any division of American soccer. But I think it's pretty safe to say one goal is never enough. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even then,
I understand the idea about the fact that, like, one thing that we highlighted last week, if you were able to listen to the podcast, because this didn't make it into the live show, this meant, because the issues we were having, technology-wise, one of the things that I had highlighted was the fact that this could have potentially have been one of the strangest formational matchups that you're ever going to see in world soccer. And I was saying, it's like, if they line up like that, we could see something very interesting. Well, guess what? They didn't. They lined up defensively.
Yeah.
They did a 4-4-2 for the game. They didn't do their normal, like, crazy 3-1-4-2 formation or whatever it was. They didn't do that. So, yeah, I mean, it was... I don't know if maybe there was a thought that because they didn't line up in their more aggressive formation, I'm not sure if maybe it was they thought that they could take it a step back because they played more defensively as a team. Charleston did. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't really have many answers for this one. I think this was more about intensity than anything else, because I didn't see anything from what I watched. I didn't see anything that Charleston did that negated the advantage that we had in the first half. I didn't really see anything. I looked at that as more of us intentionally taking a step backwards.
Okay. Who's your man of the match for this one?
Ew, do I have to? No. I'll... It's so hard because, like, I mean, obviously it's so easy to just say Guenzati because he scored and otherwise we would have lost. And especially on a night where, like, the defense didn't have to do much overall. I don't know. I guess I'll just take the safe pick and say Guenzati just because. I mean, defensively we weren't pressured much. It's hard to award man of the match to a player that didn't really have to do a whole lot. So, like, that kind of eliminates the back three and kind of, the two defensive mids. Malik had a really quiet second half. Brandon Allen, for the most part, was almost invisible to a certain degree. I don't know. I guess Guenzati.
I don't know if it's if there's a correlation here, but it seems to me that this a little bit of dip in form and results has kind of corresponded with Leo Fernandez being out. So I'm going to say Leo, even though he didn't play. Hopefully he's back as soon as possible. Sounds like he will be. So we'll see what effect or impact that has. Hopefully he's back this weekend, but we'll find out. All right, so let's move on. The only other real notable game we had listed, as far as last week's matchups was Red Bull 2 and Louisville City. I don't know if I expected Red Bull 2 to win that game because I thought Louisville had been kind of on a good run lately. But you never expect to see Red Bull win a game 1-0. But that's what happened. So Red Bull is back into second place overall in the standings, 1 point behind us. The notable matchups, the top 10, and one I'm going to kind of dip a little bit into the bottom 10 just for one reason. Pittsburgh's playing Red Bull 2. Pittsburgh's technically in 11th on the wins tiebreaker. They're level on points with Bethlehem, who we're playing, which makes this weekend's upcoming game a notable one, I suppose, for other reasons than that. We've also got Nashville versus Ottawa. We've got St. Louis and North Carolina. Let's go through. Actually, since we had just a few, let's go through and look at the other results from last week, and then we'll talk about the conference wrap up a little bit here.
I think the big one was the fact that, I mean, you look at who we're playing this week. I mean, Bethlehem Steel went in and, like, demolished St. Louis this last week. And St. Louis, obviously St. Louis has been one of the top teams in the league so far this season. They killed them 3-1.
Yeah, I think you've got to factor in a little bit. They were coming off a big Open Cup game that week, and then heading into one because they played Open Cup on Wednesday, right? Last week.
Yeah,
and then they're going into this game too, so they may be getting caught up in the fixtures a little bit with less time to rest or rotate. But
sure,
yeah, that was
they've also played one of the fewest numbers of games of.
I know. So there's
so
like
far,
2 or 3 teams
so.
that have only played 12 games, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. seems a little odd.
I think they had like one get rescheduled or something like that because of weather.
Okay. So other Eastern Conference games, you had North Carolina with an easy 2-0 win over Swope, Ottawa and Memphis at a 0-0 draw. Charlotte having fired their head coach and replacing them with their GM, who was their head coach last year and a couple years previously. Charlotte woke up all of a sudden, and it helped that they were playing Birmingham. 4-1 win over Birmingham. Atlanta dropped a 5-0 decision to Pittsburgh. Loudoun and Indy 2-1. Indy win over Loudoun. Bethlehem 3-1, like you mentioned, over St. Louis. And then on Sunday, a kind of a close game between Hartford and Nashville. Nashville comes out ahead 3-2 on that one, bouncing back after their folding chair locker room debacle in Bethlehem that we are not going to have to deal with, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes too. Indy's result putting Loudoun back below the playoff line for now, actually 4 points out from right now based on other results. So your traditional table looks like this right now. Rowdies are still on top, 30 points out of 15 games. Red Bull 2, 1 game and 1 point behind Nashville at 28 points, 2 points behind. You've got Indy, which is sitting in 4th place, but only 3 points behind us with 2 games in hand. North Carolina FC in 5th, Louisville 6th, Ottawa 7th, Charleston 8th, St. Louis 9th, and Bethlehem sitting in 10th. You've got Pittsburgh right there with them, just out on wins. If they go equal on wins, Pittsburgh would be in based on their 14 better goal difference than Bethlehem. Bethlehem's got a -9. Pittsburgh sitting at +5. Atlanta's in 12th. They're within striking distance. They're equal on points. They're 3 points back from 10th and 11th right now as well too. Now in our point per game table, there is some differences. Indy right now leads the conference in points per games. They've only played 13. They've accumulated 27 points for a 2.08 average. They also have the best form in the conference over their last 5 games, 4 wins and 1 draw. Red Bull 2 is second with 2.07, so pretty much neck and neck. 2 losses, 3 wins. Rowdies are now third with an even 2 points, 3 wins, a loss, and a draw. You've got Nashville and North Carolina FC are neck and neck at 1.87, 1.86 points per game. Ottawa 1.77, Louisville City 1.6, St. Louis 1.58, Charleston at 1.5, Pittsburgh at 1.3. The rest of the teams are at 1 point or barely over 1 point and under. So your top 10 teams seem to be an accurate reflection of where they are right now. Even though Pittsburgh's played 3 fewer games than a Bethlehem or a Charlotte. The biggest kind of things I spotted in here, maybe you saw something different. Rowdies are third in points per goal, but most in overall, and they've also played the most games, tied with several other teams. Indy's first in points per game, 4th overall. The top 4 in each table are the same, but in slightly different order. And then you've got the flip of Bethlehem and Pittsburgh for that last spot. So I know we don't have the relegation watches to relegation games to watch near the end of the season, but keeping track of who gets that 10th spot looks like it could be a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and the bottom of the table. I mean, that's going to be a tight race, and it's going to be cloudy until Pittsburgh plays basically the same number of games as everybody else. The bottom half of the table, as far as who gets in at the end, is going to be a mess. I mean, you're not going to really know until those games have been caught up. As far as, the biggest movers this year, or this week, St. Louis obviously dropping more results, but they still haven't played very many games, and that's part of the thing with them is just one loss on the points per game standing drops you like 3 positions right now because everything was so tight there for a while. So, because that was one thing that we were noticing right last couple of weeks was on the points per games table, there was like 5 teams all within like a 100th of a point of each other. So the moment one of those teams kind of loses a step and loses a game, all of a sudden it's like they just fall out of the standing because the other game, everybody else has kind of stayed up in that group. So Yeah, I mean, on a points per game standing, there really hasn't been much except for the fact that the Rowdies, because of the number of draws that we've had this year, kind of starting to slip a little bit in terms of where we might end up at the end of the year based on a
Right.
points per game basis. So that's something that is kind of nerve-wracking. Again, you got to remember, the number one team right now, in the conference has a 2.08, okay? Cincinnati finished last year with what, like a 2.37 or something like that? I mean, to give an idea of what domination looks like, I mean, we're still a couple of wins. Like, we would need to win almost like 4 games in a row or something like that, just to kind of match the pace that Cincinnati was on last year.
Right.
So, I mean, and that was kind of a special year. I mean, granted, they were using players that arguably they shouldn't have had access to, but they played a crazy good regular season last year with Cincy. So when you compare what we're doing and what we've done so far to what we've seen in some seasons past, this year looks like it's going to be a little bit tighter, but it's because of the number of draws. We're up to 6. And it's funny because this actually goes all the way back to the first show that I was on. And that was, the more these draws keep piling up, the more you're walking this razor's edge where the season could just kind of flip one way or another. Now, granted, that's the first draw we've had in a while. I'm not too concerned about it, just one. But it's funny to think about the fact that it doesn't take much in the way of results for your position to possibly kind of wiggle a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at the traditional table, as we call it, I mean, there's only 3 other teams with as many or more draws. Charleston down in 8th place, Pittsburgh in 11th, and Charlotte way down in 15th. So, I mean, they've also have way more losses as well too. But you are kind of walking that tightrope. You need to have another one of these runs where you've got 3 or 4 that wins like we had in order to. I still think we're a top 4 team overall in the end. I still think personally, we could finish first overall. I think it wouldn't be an issue, especially if we get everyone back. Guys who are going out, Najim was out for a little while for the Afghanistan, missed a game for that. Tejada's going to be, I don't know how long he's going to be gone, but he'll be out for a little while in July and maybe into August. Having these other guys ready, and maybe, you mentioned Brandon Allen getting the start with Tejada on the bench. Maybe it's a little bit of preparing for life without him for a couple games, or hopefully maybe not getting him injured before he would have a chance to go off on international duty. It's gonna be an interesting few weeks ahead of us. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like, here's the cool part though, is the fact that we've got players coming back from injury now. Some of these guys that we haven't seen in a while that picked up some knocks, they're starting to come back. Jan Ekra hit the field, which was great. It was fun to see him back on the pitch. Yeah, Sean Berry made the bench. Like he's in the spot ready to go. Yeah.
Leo Fernandez, from what we understand, might be close. He may be only out for another week or 2. I mean, as far as being on the bench at the very least.
Right.
So, if he's not on the bench this weekend, I mean, honestly, these are all players that are going to be close. So that's some good news. I mean, obviously, the only player that I can think of that we haven't seen really at all is Siaj, or however you pronounce that last name.
Yeah.
That's the only player that I can think of that we haven't seen really at all. But, it's so. It's nerve-wracking when you start to see the fact that you're going to lose Tejada for probably a month or something like that when he goes to Olympic qualifying.
Right.
But as long as everybody else is healthy, I'm not too worried about losing the one player.
Can you go find a piece of wood and just start knocking on it continuously? All right. Anything else? Anything else from the tables you want to throw in there before we move on?
There's really not a whole lot standing out. I mean,
it's
kind
of a slow week.
It's kind of just like the teams that we know that are good that we've been tracking for a bit here. New York Red Bulls, we know are great.
Right.
Indy 11, we know has been great. And then us, we know we're great.
I mean, of course.
And Nashville's a totally overinflated team that doesn't deserve to be in the position that they're in.
I just saw them linked with bringing in another international player prior to beginning their MLS season.
Isn't that special?
Isn't it, though? All right, so the other league, there's really only one real league news thing that I'm going to get into before we get to some other things. It announced it this morning. I think it leaked out actually yesterday, but I saw the official USL announcement today. After failing to convince the voters in San Diego to get behind a stadium scheme for an MLS team, Landon Donovan and one of the founders of Sacramento Republic, Warren Smith, are now heading up a USL in San Diego team that is hoping. They're on course to start playing in 2021, possibly in 2020. I've got a 3-year lease to use an existing stadium in San Diego. So this obviously is the Sacramento replacement when they most likely get picked for MLS in the near future.
Yeah, how many times have we seen between USL and NASL and USL Pro, and how many times have we seen San Diego in the conversation about having something happening? Like, that's just one of those situations where I'm just going to be like, I'm just going to sit back and, okay, sure, you say you're going to announce a team, let me see it. Let me see the field. Let me see the team on the field.
Yeah, there'll be more.
It's hard for me to get to really consider that a franchise at the moment. And honestly, in some ways, I almost think that they're more of a replacement for Nashville. I mean, granted, it takes rearranging of the conferences again, but in some ways, I kind of think it's more if they actually can play next year, because what is it? Sacramento is a couple of years out from MLS. I mean, even in a best case scenario, because their building's not finished yet.
Right.
So that's at least a year of construction before they could even get in. Assuming they're not allowed to move up before that, which I'd be kind of surprised if they could move up before that stadium's finished. But
yeah, you've got to be in New York or Miami to get that kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even then, Miami's waiting until they have at least the temporary stadium built where Lockhart used to stand.
Temporary stadium.
So at least they're building something before they play. I mean, it's better than New York City.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anything's better than New York City. So Smith, who is kind of like, I almost compare him to the lower division version of Peter Wilt, because he started up Sacramento. He was an advisor for Oklahoma City for a while. I think he was involved with Hartford at some point, and now starting up a second California team in San Diego. And Donovan is going to be the executive vice president of soccer operations. Two guys who I think can probably get something done. We'll see what happens, but I think they've got a chance to come in and be successful.
Yeah, I'm not putting a lot of stock in Donovan doing anything like that successfully.
I mean, we can already rule out one person as potential head coach, right?
That's awesome.
There'll be no Jurgen Klinsmann in San Diego. That was a really bad attempt at a German accent. But speaking of that, you as a replacement for Nashville, a few minutes ago, our friend Nipun Chopra tweeted out and really didn't put anything in here to back this up, but he's usually pretty reliable with the stuff he has. I'm told that USL powers that be are interested in expansion to Jacksonville, Chicago, Detroit, Walnut Creek, I have no idea where Walnut Creek is, and Boise as potential championship teams for 2021 and beyond. Jax is unlikely, if not Armada. As of 3 weeks ago, Armada not interested in Nisa, which I still don't believe that's ever going to get off the ground, but we'll see. Chicago and Detroit are inextricably linked to MLS scenarios in both cities. If Chicago Fire leaves Bridgeview, which I think is they've announced that that's happening, USL is back in play from what I'm told. Plus, Detroit could be another Chattanooga scenario given success of Detroit City. Walnut. Now I got to look it up. Where is Walnut Creek? Thankfully, a globally connected network of computers can probably... Oh, Walnut Creek's California. Because we need more California soccer clubs. Where in California? Let's see.
Which is funny because what was the story about the like the local, like almost like community level leagues where there was like a thing going around Twitter where they were like they needed to have like
Temecula, yeah.
They needed like 1,800 people to purchase tickets to keep them alive for another year or something like that. And it's like, sure, that's exactly the type of state that we need to add more professional level teams.
So
Absolutely.
Walnut Creek is about 16 miles from Oakland, across the bay from San Francisco. So we're just going to bring back the Deltas, huh?
That's just weird. Yeah, I don't get it. And like.
So it's the
Detroit
the competition of Oakland with the Oakland roots.
And I love the fact that like, this idea that like somehow, we'll do the Detroit thing because obviously Chattanooga's been a success. What? No, the Red Wolves are a dumpster fire that should not exist. So why would you think trying to get in bed with the MLS push in Detroit?
Yeah.
As a precursor to their bid for MLS, a good thing for the city of Detroit when that city wildly supports Detroit City.
Yeah, like you're
don't
not
get it.
You're not like siphoning away fans from Detroit City. Like that's just not going to happen. So
yeah, and I just don't understand American soccer eating itself at
right?
every possibility.
Right.
Now, and look, I get the logistics of this, right? Because like Chattanooga and Detroit are obviously they're extremely similar at just about every level, right? I get the fact that to be a professional soccer club in this country, you really need an individual with deep pockets. And I get that the supporters who have built both of those two clubs, because let's face it, they're pretty much fan-owned. Pretty much. I get the fact that they don't want to lose control of, quote, their club and their brand and I get that. But at the same time, to a certain degree, you almost have to look at both of those fan bases and say you're kind of holding a lot of the rest of us back and in some ways you're holding yourselves back by not joining the rest of us. Jacksonville's the same way. Miami FC's kind of the same way, where here you had big names, you had well-established fan bases with huge levels of support, and it's almost as if just their raw arrogance is blocking their own possibility for success. And that's one thing that I'll give credit all day to Bill Edwards was getting us out of the NASL when he did.
Yeah. That
was such a wise decision, especially how bad that league was run. And yet there are so many zealots out there that think, we're just going to join the NISA or we're going to join the Founders Cup or whatever that is. And like, we're just going to revolutionize American soccer. No, you're not. You're going to make yourselves look like idiots. And in about 3 years, that league's going to fold if it ever gets off the ground in the first place. And your brand as a soccer entity may or may not exist in 5 years.
Well, and was it like 3 or 4 teams have already abandoned Founders Cup before they even started up?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a joke. Of course it's a joke. Now, granted, I understand the bitter pill it is to swallow after campaigning for years. Look at what the Cosmos were like, campaigning for years to say, we're going to take down MLS. Well, you're not, because the MLS is billions of dollars and you're not.
Yeah.
USL, let's face it, there's 34 teams. The average franchise fee in USL right now is $2 to $5 million, at a minimum. There's ownership groups in the league itself that are worth billions, more than one that are worth billions of dollars. Teams that are ready to get up into the MLS level because they're worth so much. I just don't understand this idea that you're going to go ahead and tackle that system with a fan-owned initiative. No, you're not. So, yeah.
We're getting back into the fun soccer wars times. We thought we were done with this for a little while, but it's never ending. We have always been at soccer wars with everyone else. This is just like 1984.
Because that's the thing. Like, if Jacksonville is not the Armada, then that's going to be failed. That's just going to fail. Like, I don't see how a
Yeah.
Jacksonville expansion makes it if it's not the Armada brand in some capacity. Because anybody that's a soccer fan in that area for lower division is not going to accept a non-Armada team.
Yeah, you've got to have a large number of kind of casual fans, and that's not happening in those areas.
It's not going to happen really anywhere. I'm sorry, but it's lower division soccer. Casual fans exist in like the hundreds.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just not like people that are spending money regularly to watch the Rowdies, even if they're not in the supporter section. Most of those people are spending it because somebody in that family actually wants to know what's going on.
Right.
At least on a live effort. There's not a lot of people that say, "Oh, I don't really like soccer, but I'll buy a ticket anyways." Yeah, not for the Rowdies. You might get that kind of a crowd for baseball every now and then. Oh, I'm not much of a baseball fan, but I'll go and watch maybe one game. But people don't watch USL soccer because they have nothing to do on a Saturday night. They watch because they care.
Right.
At least somebody in the family.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and has nothing to do with USL at all. It's two MLS teams in the Open Cup. Did you see the mess between was it Columbus and Atlanta United?
Are we talking mess because of the absolutely unbelievably bad weather conditions that Columbus seems to be plagued with every time they have to host an Open Cup?
Partially that, and a little bit of the player and fan disdain for unfortunately well-known official Guido Gonzalez Jr.
Yeah, Guido.
All right, so I'm going to read this article on ProSoccerUSA.com, which I think is a horribly named site, but they have some pretty good writers on there. Columbus Crew SC lost 3-2 to Atlanta United in the U.S. Open Cup, and the game ended on a play that many Crew players felt should have been a penalty. Defenders Alex Crognell and Gaston Sorrow ran up to the center official, Guido Gonzalez Jr., and began yelling at him. As this happened, Gonzalez backed away to huddle with his assistant referee when a fan from the stands threw a water bottle at him. More players surrounded the officials, who then requested a police escort off the field. As they were being escorted off the field, Crew fans gathered around the edges of the stands, getting as close to the field as possible to shout profanity and make obscene hand gestures. Map-free stadium policy states guests shall not interfere with the view or enjoyment of other guests by fighting, throwing objects, or using profane, sexist, racial, obscene, or abusive language or gestures. Columbus Crew released a statement after the match that read, guests who fail to abide by the code of conduct as determined by stadium management may be ejected from the facility, subject to arrest and or banned from further events. The liaison, this is where I start to laugh a little bit at this, liaison for officials was upset with the conduct he saw after the match. It's pathetic. It's ruining the beautiful game, the liaison said. This is when you know you're getting into like some serious pearl clutching in soccer, because someone breaks out the beautiful game, sometimes in quotes. The game isn't that important to try and cause physical harm to someone. I remember back in the day, people used to throw batteries at my guys in this stadium. You can't have this happen. It's ruining the game. There will be punishment for this. People will be banned, and if it continues, you'll eventually have games in empty stadiums. Columbus head coach Caleb Porter described the end of the game officiating as shocking. They trial officials in this competition and see how they do, and it's disappointing, which is true. Gonzalez is frequently a linesman or a fourth official for MLS games, center ref in a lot of USL games, and has not done the best of jobs. You need high-level officials that know how to smell a game and manage a game. I like that smell a game phrase there. You can't throw stuff at officials, obviously, but the reaction was normal. In a game like this where it's do or die, you win in advance or you lose and go home, there's a lot of emotion. It happens at the end of the game where people voice their opinions and they have to get out of there. I'm totally on board with the don't throw stuff at officials, like don't throw batteries, don't throw water bottles, don't throw foam soccer balls. Not that anyone that we know of has ever done that.
You listen here, Matt.
I'm okay with that part. But this, don't curse and flip the bird. Like, okay, every stadium has that in their policy as something they can tack on to somebody if they get busted doing something else. Spare me I hope the official liaison didn't faint while he was describing this set of circumstances. Get over it.
Yeah, I there's so many things to dive into on that subject. I mean, from a referee perspective, right? At a certain point, you need to find ways to give them the experience to test them at the higher level. I mean, it's not
Right.
like referees are just magically great. They work their way up the system. They referee hundreds, if not thousands, actually pretty sure thousands of games to even have the chance to be a fourth official for an MLS game. You know, I mean, there's so many hours of classroom work of having assessors watch every move while you're doing a game to verify whether you're still worthy of that kind of level of assignment. You know, they operate, and again, this is one of the interesting things about soccer is you have the perception of the fans, you have the perception of the media, you know, the internal parts of the club as far as like the coach, the player, the refs, but then you have like the world of the referee. And I mean, every one of those worlds are totally like almost isolated from the other. I mean, the referees are under their own set of pressures from their own assessors, from their own teachers, where if those people don't do very well, I mean, shoot, even at the youth level, if you do bad in a tournament, there are referee assigners that will put your name basically on a list of people that they won't call again. It happens with the kids. All right. You don't think that kind of thing happens with the pros? Let me tell you something. You got another thing coming. But the fact is, at a certain point, if I'm reffing a lot of ARs and a lot of fourth officials for an MLS game and I'm trying to move up the ladder, somebody eventually is going to have to assign me a center role. And you know what? If I do bad the first time, that doesn't mean I'm just going to quit. I'm going to keep trying.
Right.
I'm going to keep pushing up there. So would you rather that game be an early season MLS game, or would you rather that competition between two MLS level teams be in an Open Cup, in an early round of the Open Cup? Because at some point he's going to have to get experience and consistent experience reffing MLS level teams. So what? I mean, you're only allowed to get your first crack at an MLS game if you are in the month of May. All right, here's your 1 month of opportunity for getting experience. Oh, the window's shut. Now you're screwed. You're only doing ARs for the rest of the season.
Right.
Excuse me. No, I that's where I have a problem with some of the comments about, well, this guy's clearly unqualified. Yeah, no crap. Almost all of us are. There's only a handful of people legitimately that are qualified for reffing an MLS level game. I mean, literally, let's think about this. There's maybe, like 30 people in the whole freaking country that are worthy of reffing an MLS level game? I mean, there's not exactly a massive pool of people that are capable of doing it. And let's face it, of the 30, not all of them are loved.
Definitely. Very few.
So I don't have a problem giving Guido chances to improve his craft. I don't mind having people like Ted Uncle have the chance to improve his craft. I'm not going to say he shouldn't ref anymore, because if you start telling people that, then you're going to run out of referees in a hurry, because there ain't a lot of them. So that being said,
maybe we could just VAR everything.
Yeah, right. That being said, I sympathize with everybody involved, because, yeah, there was a couple of bad decisions there. A couple of shocking decisions that really didn't make a lot of sense. But what is the one thing, when VAR was first considered on the world stage, what is one of the biggest arguments that you heard about VAR? Besides, slowing the game down because there would be moments where you'd have to watch something again or have something get reviewed in a booth. What was the other thing that you heard of by almost everybody was, well, you're ruining the spirit of the game because the subjectiveness of the official is a part of the game. Well, guess what, everybody? You can't have it both ways. And how many times have we seen this in the World Cup, too? The Women's World Cup.
Ooh.
Where it's like, the VAR thing is ruining the game and blah, blah, because they're measuring by inches now. Well, what do you want? Do you want a subjective referee where every decision may or may not happen correctly? Or do you want a VAR system that's going to call it correctly maybe not necessarily the first time, quote unquote, but it's going to be a check to make sure that the play was called correctly in general? Because you can't do it both ways. You can't have a VAR system and a subjective referee. We're trying a blended system of that right now, but if you're going to institute VAR, that means that you're going to call things at a precise level. You're going to eliminate the need for having a need of a subjective call. So for me, I hate to say it, but what happened in Columbus, guess what? It's a part of the game.
Yeah,
you may not like the result. You may not like the call, but it's a part of the game. You kind of need, as a professional athlete, as a professional coach, I mean, a fan base is a fan base. I'll give them whatever, let them act like fools. But, I mean, we certainly do. But
from time to time.
But I'm just saying, I don't think it's the place of a coach to call out a referee like that. It isn't. He made a decision. Get over it. Don't let 3 goals get scored against you, and you might have a better chance at winning that game.
I would help at least. All right, so actually, I'm going to flip flop these two real quick, so I keep it kind of in the right order. So another event coming up. The Rowdies mentioned. I don't know if the Rowdies mentioned or if it was caught on the Humane Society. Someone mentioned it. Put it out there. The Rowdies are finally having the Bring Your Dog to the Stadium night in September in the game versus Atlanta United 2. Roughs and Rowdies. It's something like 20. I don't know if they're if you're getting a ticket for a specific section, if you're sitting in a certain area, or if you're just going to have like random dogs scattered around the stadium. But it's a pregame tailgate access. And they did the tailgate because it's your dog.
What a knee slapper!
It'll be like. You kind of have to put all of them together, right? But then don't you worry about maybe the dog's not getting along? You can't really scatter them around the stadium, can you?
Well, let's see here. When the Rays did it, because obviously this is one of the crossovers from the Rays, because the Rays have been doing that for a couple of years now. I think in the Rays scenario, aren't they all up in the same section?
I would assume.
Maybe not. You know what? Now I'm not even sure. I honestly don't know the answer to that.
I say put them down there in the corner kick party area, and then if you have a problem with one of the referee's calls and your dog accidentally gets off the leash, sorry, but it's part of human error.
Rowdies. This is the Rowdies. We eat you alive if we don't like you. Yeah, I could get behind that.
Just send the dogs on the pitch.
Hey, we didn't nickname ourselves Beasts of the East for nothing.
I mean, this is true. So let's turn our attention towards this weekend. Preview the Bethlehem game. First off, Dominic Oduro will be out for this game. Yellow card accumulation. No one else is on warning or on suspension, so he's got it out of the way and get it over with. It was going to happen at some point. Bethlehem's been having some stadium shenanigans. They relocated from their stadium in Bethlehem to the Philadelphia Union Stadium up in Chester, and then it turned out that the new sod they had laid down in Chester hadn't taken hold yet, and having extra games and events like rugby and stuff going on out there were not leaving the field in good condition for the Union. So the couple of the games for the Steel were rescheduled. The first 2 were played at LaSalle University. If you remember the pictures of the folding chairs next to the stand is the modified locker room. Steel announced, let's say a day or 2 ago, maybe yesterday, that the game this weekend will be played at Goodman Stadium, which is where they have played the last few years. The place where you have to run downhill on a corner kick. And it has no lights, which is why I assume the kickoff has been moved to 5 p.m. So if you're going somewhere to watch the game this weekend, make sure you're there by 5 to watch it. Bethlehem so far this season is 2-5-3 at home, and I'm putting home in air quotes because this will be the 3rd different home stadium they've played at this year. 4-7-4 overall. They've usually been. It's kind of weird. Like Red Bull does a really good job of winning a lot of games. Red Bull 2 does a good job of winning a lot of games and sending kids through to the Red Bull senior team. Bethlehem's kind of been, 50-50 as far as winning games. I think they just qualified for the playoffs for the first time last year. But they always send a ton of guys up to the Union. So there's a lot of players that I have no idea about right now. Their leading scorer is Ferris Mumbagna with 4 goals. However, he's suspended this weekend for a red card. They've got 3 other players tied with 3. The other guy to keep an eye on for this game will be Zachary Zandy. He's got 5 assists and also created 17 chances, leading the steal, in both of those categories. As well as their captain, James Chambers, who's making his 100th appearance for Bethlehem Steel. He's kind of the older veteran presence on the club. They've kept 1 clean sheet this year and conceded 31 goals. I think we've got a chance to score. Hopefully we don't let in an equal or more amount of goals.
Well, I mean, here's the thing about Charleston. Sorry, wow, I'm misspeaking because I'm reading something and trying to talk at the same time. In terms of Bethlehem, you got to remember, again, this is one of those teams where, unlike New York Red Bulls too, where New York Red Bulls not only have a lot of good players at the USL level, but they also can that make sure that they have a great season in there. They also have enough depth that they can send people up and back and forth as well and continue to improve the Red Bulls. The problem with the Steel for a long time was that they were kind of getting mediocre results. They would surprise people every now and then, but they were getting mediocre results in USL, and the MLS team sucked for the longest time. Guess what? That's kind of changed now. Suddenly, all the work they've been doing in USL has started to pay off for them, because now what? I think the last time I checked, Union were the top team in the Eastern Conference in MLS. So, it's starting to work out for them. Having this USL program, having the team, besides the fact that they can't figure out where they have to play, the strategy itself is starting to work for them too. What's fascinating about Bethlehem, and the reason why they've allowed so many goals this year, they play a hyper-aggressive system. And it's funny because they aren't the biggest goal-scoring machines out there, but they traditionally play like a 4-3-3 style. And, I mean, they go for it. Those players, they absolutely just go for it. And guess what? It means that teams that are prepared for that catch them on a counter. Funny that. Where have we heard that before? But no, I mean, that is legitimate. Like, they do press numbers up, and their back four has been pretty consistent all year, so it's not even a problem. Like, that was one of the things that we were looking at was when we were kind of reviewing this team, is that it's not their goal leaking, as it were, is not because they've had a constant rotation of players in the back line that they haven't been able to adjust, or it's not a formational issue where they keep changing formations. No, they pretty much play 4 defenders, and those 4 people have been the same almost the entire year. It's not really that. It is pretty much the fact that they just throw numbers forward at every opportunity, and everybody does it. Now, what makes that dangerous, though, is they pretty much have goal scorers all over the place. And it was one thing that you had mentioned here, the fact that their leading goal scorer has 4 goals. And then they have 3 other players with 3 goals each. Now, granted, let's face it, you've played, almost 15 games this year, and you've got your leading goal scorer has 4 goals. You're not breaking any records or anything. But
right.
When you've got that many people scoring goals for you, and not like defenders who only have 1, 3 shots, 3 goals, and that's somehow significant. No, these are people that have taken 20, 15, 24, 21 shots. Like Chambers is a midfielder by definition, and he's taken 21 shots on the year with and he's finished 2 of them. Not to mention the amount of assists that he has for the year. That's a pretty impressive offensive output. From a team that has been kind of hovering around the playoff line all year, they haven't really been able to distance themselves or get some consistency. But yeah, I'm just thinking this is going to be a tough game for us in the context that we're playing a team that's going to go for it, because that's what they've been doing. So that's one thing that's kind of interesting to me, is that we don't have speedy strikers.
Right.
You know, Gonzatti is not somebody known for blowing people away on the field. Tejada's not the person that's going to just absolutely, you know, kick the tires, light the fires, and he's just going to run right by you.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, and Brandon Allen isn't going to do that. I mean, we don't have players that are going to beat you at pace. So we're not going to be able to take advantage of a quick counterattack as easily as some other teams are. So that's got me a little nervous about what we're going to face this weekend as far as styles of play. Because, I mean, that's going to be an aggressive team that we're going to face. And I don't have any fear of our defense locking them down because, our back, well, five if you consider the defensive mids, like our five dedicated defensive players, I think are going to do fine. I don't have any problems, especially since they're missing one of their biggest offensive outputs. You know, with the guy that's sitting out, their leading scorer, Mumbagna. I can't pronounce that.
That's what I went
African
with.
name.
That's what I went with.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have a fear of us being able to shut them down. I actually legitimately have a fear of us being able to score goals. Because I don't think we've got the type of talent that capitalizes on counterattacking football. So I think it might be a struggle for us this weekend. I think this is going to be a tough game.
Look, I think we just need to go in there and try and recreate the Zardes goal from last night 3 or 4 times.
I'm just going to
the
say
one that
this
actually
right now.
counted, not the
If
one that was
you
waved
just
off.
If you just made a prediction about a Brandon Allen face-assisted goal in the Zardes style, I will.
Oh God, I could see that too.
I will pay you money for that.
Oh man,
I'm just saying that would be how Brandon Allen scores this weekend is with a Zardes style face plant. Yeah.
This is gonna be good. I'll be watching for that when I'm at Shamrock tonight. On Saturday. All right, so prediction time. I think I know what you're gonna say, and I'm gonna differ on it. I think so. What's your prediction?
You have no idea what I'm gonna do. You're not my father. No. I think despite what's gonna happen, I think I'm actually gonna go. I'm going to actually do something you probably aren't expecting. I'm going to say 2-0 Rowdies this weekend.
I was thinking maybe you'd go 1-0 or 1. I'm going to go 3-1 Rowdies.
Interesting.
And I'm also going to say I'm glad that we're going in there with no one else on like yellow card caution, because these games have typically been pretty physical, pretty sketchy from time to time. It would not surprise me if we see a plethora, a veritable cornucopia of cards this weekend.
A shining abundance.
I mean, you can just go ahead and put Diakite down for a yellow right now. I'm calling that.
I would bet that probably Poku gets a yellow, assuming Poku plays. I think that would be a fair assessment.
So do you think he starts over Oduro with Oduro out?
Well, Poku would be starting anyways.
Who do you think is going to take that spot?
I would think Ekra.
Ekra? Okay.
Yeah,
Makes
I would
sense,
think Ekra would probably start
sense.
as a defensive mid.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We're already past 9 o'clock, and it didn't feel like we were going to get to 9 o'clock at one point because it was just kind of like we're just kind of like cruising through this, but we got there.
I know. It really did sneak up.
I know. We love yous. Who do you have?
All right, I'm going to do something a little weird.
Okay.
I'm going to give my Who Are Ya to the Tampa Bay Rays.
All
and
right.
this is why. This last weekend, we saw the first major effort at trying to do a cross-promotion between the two organizations as far as fan bases are concerned. And they made a heck of a push trying to get people going both ways. Yeah, not all of us are baseball fans. I didn't grow up, a baseball player. I've never played a baseball game in my life. But I appreciate the fact that they're trying to improve the fan bases and the relationship between the clubs and between the organizations. and I was telling this to people. I think this benefits the Rowdies more than it does the Rays, because if you get a couple hundred people from the Rowdies that aren't normally baseball fans that start going to Rays games, especially say on like a weekend game, that's not going to increase their attendance needle very much. You know, they're already getting 20,000 people a game on the weekends. What's 200 people more? But if you have 200 people going the opposite direction that start attending Rowdies games that didn't normally attend Rowdies games before, and our attendance goes up by 200 people a game, that's a far more impressive statistic on our side.
Yeah, that's more noticeable in the stands.
So I think, quite frankly, the cross-promotion actually benefits the Rowdies far more than it does the Rays in terms of who you're trying to pull those numbers for. So to that's why I'm going to give them my We Love You, because I want to see more of that. And from what I understand, for as makeshift as it was, considering they only really did it with like a week and a half notice.
Right.
From what I understand, they sold a couple hundred tickets.
Oh, wow.
For the crossover, because they had 2 charter buses that were shuttling fans over from the Trop to Al Lang.
Mm-hmm.
Those buses made multiple trips.
Wow. And those buses are holding at least 50 on the way each
55,
way.
Yeah,
50,
roughly
55.
So the fact that, I mean, to my eyes, like, that's a success. So, you know, and now we're starting to see things like they introduced the, which you remembered earlier, the Roughs and Rowdies. I actually hadn't seen that announcement yet. That was actually news to me on the air here live. The fact that you've had that, I've heard, I was talking to somebody that there may be a chance that they might try and do one of those like faith night style of things that they do with the Rays events,
right?
Where they'll have somebody talk about, you know, faith and how it relates to their lives as a professional athlete and that kind of thing, for that type of community. Supposedly that might be something that they try and do with the Rowdies later this year. I appreciate all of that.
Right.
You know, I'm no baseball fan. I don't really care. But it's also interesting to note that what was the other kind of interesting news from the week was the fact that Sternberg, who's the majority owner of the Rays but was not necessarily a part of the equation about the Rowdies purchase. So it's not really a direct correlation, but it made headlines this week that apparently he's either purchased a home in St. Petersburg or he's on the verge of purchasing a home in St. Petersburg.
Yeah, and that's always been the big knock on him, was that he was the absentee owner. He was here for, you know, the opening series of the season, and he'd be here for, you know, like the Yankees or Boston came to town, and here at the end of the year. And then that was kind of it, which does the owner need to be here 24/7? I don't know. A lot of people just, you know, when things aren't perfect, then you find something to complain about, and there it was. But yeah, it's interesting.
It's interesting. It is noteworthy, especially as you see the organizations try and cross promote more often. It's kind of just another thing that you start looking at it and going, I wonder what the long-term plans are. Yeah. But I'll give my We Love You to the Rays for what they're doing so far, and that I thought it was a pretty successful weekend for both organizations for trying to pull people going both ways. I thought, from what I could tell, I thought it was a pretty successful weekend, and I want more of it.
All right. I like that. I'm going to put mine out there. We didn't have anybody in Team of the Week this week, but we did have someone being honored. Leo Fernandez, inducted to the Stony Brook University Sports Hall of Fame for what he did there as a student athlete. So shout out to Leo Fernandez. Hope we see you back on the pitch soon. Thank you guys, as always, for listening. Thank you to Wolfface for the theme music, to Radio St. Pete, and to the Shamrock Pub. We'll be down there probably sometime soon. Like we said, thank you to you guys for continuing to find time in your schedule to listen to us live or later in the podcast version. Please continue to share, subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you listen to it to put us out there in front of others. If you'd like to support the show on an ongoing basis, you can visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/unusedSubsPod. Lastly, thanks to our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier of MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. Steven, that's it. We didn't have any technical problems, assuming you're still there.
Yeah, right. It's funny what happens when you know.
I
Mad.
did check today, and it said the latest giant Windows update is ready. I was like, I'm gonna hold off on this one. It hasn't downloaded and already installed and waiting for me to reboot, and it's already 7:00. I'm not gonna start this now.
Yeah, that was a good decision.
But
I'm glad that you didn't try that.
But we are going to do this very soon, so it might be a little bit later tonight getting the show out, but it'll be up there. That's it. I will not see you this weekend because there's not a home game, but I will be down at Shamrock. If anyone's going there, I assume the other watch parties in the regular locations will be going off. Remember, it's 5:00, not 7:30. Apparently,
How dare you assume that I have no interest in going to the Shamrock this weekend?
I mean,
how dare you, sir?
You're more than welcome because we're gonna have the Gold Cup on right after that too.
Ooh la la!
At least they set up a nice little doubleheader with the time change. We because that'll be game will be over roughly around 7ish. Then the Gold Cup coverage starts at like 7:30. Kickoff at 8. So good for a few hours at the Shamrock this weekend.
Yeah,
I'm already there every other day for Gold Cup or Women's World Cup as it is. So
you're in summer vacation mode, so you're just watching everything. I'm over there at work and I'm missing everything.
And I still haven't even been able to fit in a lot of Copa America yet because most of them are later in the afternoon or evening when we're running out and doing other stuff. But soon, hopefully. All right, Stephen, I will talk to you. Oh, we got to talk about next week because there is the last Gold Cup group stage game is next Wednesday night. So we might have to reschedule for a different day or figure something else out.
It's been a while since we've done a live show together.
This is true. Let me double check times and everything and see what we can, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, maybe that might be something fun that we haven't done in a while.
But a live one would be fun. Yeah, we could do that. Let's talk about it and we'll see. All right. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to you, Stephen. Thanks to.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks to everybody except Ryan Sudol. He knows why. We'll talk.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to throw out the fact that somebody made the funniest jab at Ryan this last weekend.
Oh, God, what?
Oh, my gosh. Okay. One of the fine folks from the Sarasota Casuals, when we were at the Rays game, Ryan stopped by the group of mobsters and supporters that went out to the Rays game. Somebody made a comment with Ryan there. He was like, "Hey, Steven, come over and stand next to me. You're the real voice of the Rowdies." And we all about fell over laughing.
Nice.
It was the greatest jab ever. Ryan's like, "I'm never talking to any of you ever again." It was the greatest moment.
I'll tell you another story off air in a minute.
That was great.
All right, guys. That's it. Thank you again to everyone. We'll talk to you later. See ya.
Go Rowdies.
The Rowdies were here, the Rowdies were there, they kicked the wall around.